All right, we're back on Media Row, brought to you by Toyota, and we're sitting in our Lazy Boy recliners. Long live the lazy, and I'm joined by former NFL linebacker, edge rusher, Chad Brown. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I have to tell you, these seats are incredibly comfortable. These are the best seats on Radio Row.
All right, I love to hear that. Hey, when did the position edge become a thing?
I'd say in the last 5 years,
Yeah.
it went from defensive end, outside linebacker to now edge guys.
Yeah.
Basically guys who get after the quarterback. And then with the importance of the quarterback position, it makes sense for the defense to have somebody who's equally as important to them because of the way they affect the quarterback.
Yeah, and how did you develop your skills in that position as an edge?
It's going to sound pretty funny, but I grew up in a fairly small home and with tight hallways. And so I had several older brothers and sisters. So going down the hallway, I'd have to make my sister miss, or I'd do a spin move on my brother. So I've been practicing edge moves since I was probably 5 or 6 years old.
Wow, and so that's you're making yourself small to get around.
Get yourself skinny so you can
Yes,
get
yes.
around. Oh, I'm going to act like I'm going this way. I'm going to spin back inside. So I didn't know I was working on getting to the quarterback. I was just trying to avoid being smushed into the wall by my older brother.
Oh, that's phenomenal. So a lot of your years with Seattle. How was that rivalry? How do you look back on the rivalry, the 49ers and the Seahawks back in the day?
Well, considering when I was coming up, I'm 55, so the early 80s, kind of my beginning of football development of fandom and all that,
Yeah.
the 49ers were so great. So to be in those stadiums, play against those guys, play against that uniform, that organization, was always a treat for me. And we had a few victories as Seahawks during my time against the 49ers. I had a couple of good games against them, so I always took a little extra pride in sticking it to the 49ers. Not that I hated them, but just because of the kind of organization and the success they've had.
What are you doing now?
I do a little bit of broadcasting, obviously, talking to cameras and microphones about football pretty much every weekend. I did 18 NFL and college games this year for national radio, and I've got my weird shipping company where I ship living things, reptiles, fish, and plants.
Huh, interesting. We just had Robert Irwin over here, and he wrapped a python around me, and so I'm sure you've shipped a few snakes in your time?
I have shipped well over 500,000 reptiles across the country in the last 15 years.
That's incredible. Now, there was a point where you were coaching or wanted to get into coaching or kind of went down that path a little bit, the Bill Walsh Minority Coaching Program?
Correct. So I've done 4 coaching internships. The Seahawks, the Titans, the Jets, and I finished up with the 49ers was my last coaching internship, and I did the entire OTAs process with them.
Yeah.
And being inside that organization with Kyle Shanahan, you guys are in very, very good hands.
Explain. What? I mean, you've been around the game a long time. What stood out to you?
Well, it was the off season, so we had a little bit more time in meetings to kind of flesh out some concepts. So almost every day during the OTAs process, he would have a historical deep dive into some elements of his offense. He would show clips of, this is my dad running that in Denver. This is me and my dad running that in DC. And now here's us running it last year. Here's a couple of clips of what people have done to defend this. This is the things that we've done schematically to counteract those things that defenses are doing. So a really deep dive into the concepts and the origins and the history of some of these plays that are still successful, starting with his dad and now 30 plus years later. I'm not sure some of the players, it was over their heads, but for me as a football nut, I was like enthralled with every minute of it.
Wow, and he has this is 2019, is that right?
Correct.
So
yes.
that was leading into that Super Bowl season. So, I mean, we give you credit for the Super Bowl, of course.
I'll take credit for that, thank you.
But the thing that I've often heard people say about Kyle is that he really knows the defense as well as the offense, and he can put his offense in positions where their goal is to break the rules of the opposing defense.
I think that's a great way to put that. So what he wants to do, he wants to put a defender in conflict. So as an example, when I was playing Mike Shanahan in the Denver Broncos, I had to be respectful of Terrell Davis when he ran away from me because he could cut back. I was responsible as a linebacker for cut back run. But I was also responsible for Shannon Sharp. And so I've got to go this way to chase down Terrell Davis, But now Shannon Sharpe is taken off to the flat. Well, which one do I do? I'm in conflict based on my rules. So for Mike Shanahan and now Kyle and now everyone else who runs that system to understand defensive rules and what defender do we want to put in conflict on this play. And depending on what that defender does, then the quarterback has an option to be right pretty much every single time.
Wow. And the way you watch a game, what did that 2019 offseason, now when you watch the 49ers through the years from that season on, can you see elements shifting or evolving?
The plays themselves are actually very similar, but how they get to them. We've all seen Kyle Juszczyk insert himself somewhere, maybe guard center gap, maybe guard tackle gap. But now he's doing that with tight ends. So as a defender, I have a gap responsibility. But now this tight end's going in motion, and suddenly my gap responsibility changes, and that's no longer the B gap. This is the B gap. So again, trying to put those guys in conflict, make things difficult or muddy for them to read. The play concepts are the same as 30 years ago, but the window dressing around them continues to evolve and change.
Yeah, as you're saying that, this season it seemed to be, they call it the dash motion for Juszczyk, kind of going in that circular motion to get ahead of steam to make those lead blocks.
On one hand, it gives him a head of steam, so he can be more effective at the point of attack. But again, if he goes this way, well, now every defender from a linebacker or safety perspectives got to now mentally go one more block over. Now he's gone back the other way. Now I've got to go one more back and one more gap back the other way. So to force me to do that mental calculation twice before a play even starts, then who knows where he's actually going to insert. There could be 3 mental calculations you have to go through to ensure you're in the proper spot. It makes them very difficult to defend.
Yeah, it's fine. I had this conversation with Kyle last season where there was a play that Brock checked out of. They do the can system, and so it ended up being a touchdown. And I asked Kyle, I said, well, when you guys check out of the original play, why doesn't the defense just check out of their original defense and do something else to throw you off? And he went on a long explanation of because they don't know if we're really checking out of that play, that if we're seeing something or if it's a dummy call to get them confused and moving. It's that game inside the game, which is I find so fascinating.
If you've ever had a dog, we always do that thing where you show the dog one hand and you grab him with the other hand. It seems so incredibly simple. But with football, obviously, there's always this evolution. And so there are defenses that would look at a certain motion from a 49er-style offense, and we're going to check something else. Well, then if they do that really late, then can I communicate the call? Does everyone hear the call? Now we got 2 guys in the wrong gap. That's exactly what they want. Yeah. So now we got to play safe. We can no longer be aggressive with them because they're dictating to us. We have to react off of them. There's so many little mental things that they do, forcing you to continually think, but there's also just that prospect of, hey, I'm the A-gap player. Well, now the A-gap's changed 3 times before the ball is even snapped. That's impossible to defend.
Oh, wow, that's great stuff. Okay, so Super Bowl on Sunday. You have ties to both organizations. I would assume more time spent in Seattle. That's probably where your allegiance is. But as you look at it from an objective standpoint, what's this game going to be all about?
Well, I shared a linebacker room with Mike Vrabel. So I certainly spent 8 years in Seattle and loved my time there. But Mike Vrabel and I became good friends. Our families and kids played together in the hallways of the stadium. Wives went to dinner together.
So you're rooting for the person over the uniform, perhaps. Not the words in your mouth.
But John Snyder was the general manager towards the end of my time in Seattle. And he's built an incredible squad very quickly with a new coach and a new quarterback and a lot of young defenders. So I've got allegiances on both sides. I'm expecting a close game, I will say that.
Really? Because a lot of people think, the Seattle Seahawks, the way they're playing, could run away in this game.
I think there's always going to be a recency bias, and based off the way the Patriots offense has underperformed a bit. Again, going against some very good defenses here in the playoffs. Drake May sacked 15 times. I think recency bias would say, Seahawks are going to run away with this. But you give Mike Vrabel, you give Josh McDaniels 2 weeks to prepare. The guys who are probably the most steeped in situational football and how to maximize each situation. I certainly give the Patriots a tremendous shot in this game. I don't think anyone should overlook them at all.
You bring up a point there. Mike Vrabel could make it really difficult on Sam Darnold. And that could be something that turns the game, right? Just one misread, one ill-advised throw, whatever the case may be.
I mean, it wasn't too long ago we saw Sam Darnold on the sideline saying, "I'm seeing ghost." So you don't think Mike Vrabel and his defensive staff are ensuring that Sam Darnold sees dozens of ghosts out there on Sunday?
Yeah.
That's what they're grinding right now, trying to do.
Yeah. Hey, Chad, thanks so much, man.
Thanks
This
for having
has
me
been
on.
a lot of
This was
fun.
great. Appreciate it.
Yeah.